why is Bitcoin not going up when all of the precious metals are going up? It seems like those two assets were very tied together. There was a lot of correlation between them. I spent the weekend taking a deep dive and trying to better understand this. And I thought I'd come on and try to explain to you exactly what I learned and what my current thoughts are. In terms of gold, I think that gold is a safe haven asset. And we know that central banks are buying more and more gold hand over fist for their reserves. That makes sense because not only are people dropping dollars and US treasuries, but actually what we're seeing is a de-fiatization of the global economy. It means that people are saying, look, I'm not going to sell dollars and I'm going to go and buy, yen or won or pesos or anything else. Instead, what they're saying is I'm going to sell dollars. I'm going to buy gold. And so naturally, gold, it's not a completely finite asset, but it's a scarce asset. And so if you have a significant increase in demand for a scarce asset, then gold's going to go up. But the thing that's interesting is it's not just gold. Silver, which I think a lot of people say, well, silver's kind of the little brother of gold. But silver's demand is not only coming from people who want some sort of store value. Obviously, yes, some people buy it because they think that it is a scarce asset as well and it will appreciate. But I actually think that the bigger story for silver is the fact that it's an industrial metal. You need silver to do a lot of different things. If you start to look at what is going on with silver, well, you start to say how many different pieces of defense equipment or AI hardware, or maybe even things like self-driving cars. There is significant demand for silver because the world is building things again. We are starting to produce stuff both in the United States and internationally. We're saying that we want to re-industrialize the world. And if we're going to do that, we need to have the raw materials to be able to go ahead and conduct that work. And silver's a big winner there. And then obviously, if we go and we look at copper and we look at platinum, copper is really interesting because there's a lot of stuff there. You have all of the electric vehicles. You've got all of the electrical infrastructure. You've got renewable energy. All of those things need copper. And then platinum, very similar thing. Now, the thing that's interesting about platinum, and the reason why it's up 200% in the last year, is that there is very, very low supply. And so you have a market structure that is in favor of platinum holders, and then you've got that increasing demand. It's a lot about what used to be the driving story behind Bitcoin is that there was this finite supply, huge demand, and that led to a big price appreciation. Now, that brings us to Bitcoin. Remember, the metals are all up, and they're up substantially, 40% to 250% over the last year. Bitcoin is down 16% at the same time. And so I think that there's a couple of pieces here that are worth paying attention to. First, you have the adoption by Wall Street. And so now that it's being brought into the system, those people may be not as excited. They may think that there's not as much upside to it. Obviously, Peter Thiel and many others have publicly said that they think that Bitcoin's future prospects may not be as asymmetric as the past. Now, the second thing that I think is really important is I think that a lot of people looked at Bitcoin as a chaos hedge, and they thought that the more that there was instability, both domestically and internationally, something like Bitcoin would be a great solution. Now, what's interesting to me is the central banks, their chosen asset is gold. Central banks have a lot of money and they're helping to drive the price of gold. But it seems like there is not as much of a bid for Bitcoin coming as this kind of insurance hedge. The last thing that I think is happening here is I believe that artificial intelligence is the shiny new tool. And so if you go and you look at young people, how many young people are talking about Bitcoin versus talking about Claude Code, or talking about Claude Bot, or talking about Claude Cowork, or talking about ChatGPT, or talking about Perplexity, or going and trying to use some of these tools at their job? I just believe that a huge piece of capital flows in financial markets is all about how do I make money? And right now, a lot of people are not looking at Bitcoin. That's why sentiment is so bad.